The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Francis Scott Fitzgerald.
Part 2. The Mechanisms of Life.
Well then, in the first part of this book, we were merely assembling the frame or border of our puzzle. This frame consists of four main building blocks. The first block is a foundational premise at the level of philosophy, or more precisely, metaphysics, the dual nature of reality. The second block is the presentation of this duality in the form of two inter-organizing worlds, the objective realm of energy and the subjective realm of information. These two worlds interact through a kind of two-way membrane, life. All living beings perceive the realm of energy as a collection of texts, and they are capable of interpreting these objectively existing texts within their own subjective contexts. The third block is the concept of the model of the universe. Using this concept, we finally formulated that life is a process of cognition, and the purpose of life is to discover a fully adequate model of the universe. And finally, the fourth block is the highly useful metaphor of Missy and her cells, which has already helped us begin to understand what God is, and just how vast and impassable the chasm is between Him and us. This metaphor will continue to serve us in later chapters. In the second part of the book, several major central pieces of our puzzle will come into view. Many of them will begin to connect with each other through logical bridges, and, of course, with the frame we've already built. Still, I'm afraid the overall picture of the puzzle will likely remain unclear, at least until we dive deeper into the material of Part 3. The main goal of this second part is to uncover the general properties and regularities by which life originates, exists, and evolves. I should note, however, that this section is a bit more complex than the previous one. It assumes the reader has a good grasp of high school biology and chemistry, and is at least somewhat familiar with the basics of mathematical logic. So, dear friends, welcome to the second part of Alexander Neshmonin's book, Changing the Paradigm of Life.
Discreteness.
We've all heard it before. Everything in this world, whether entities, phenomena, or processes, falls into one of two categories, continuous or discrete. So, here's the first interesting conclusion we can draw about life. It's always discrete. Let's start with the fact that all living things are spatially limited. Life never exists as a substance or an environment. There's no such thing as living air or living water. Life is always contained, always concentrated in distinct, separate, discrete beings, like bacteria, plants, animals, etc. Every living thing has some kind of physical boundary, a body within which life exists. Sometimes it's tricky to outline these boundaries. Take an anthill, for example. Its body is made up of individual ants sprawling over a large area. But the organism itself always knows where its boundaries are and can precisely say where me ends and not me begins. In this sense, we can confidently say that all life is discrete in space.
But what about time?
Of course. Life is discrete in time as well, because every living thing is characterized by a lifespan, right?
Well, sure, but we live continuously from birth to death.
But But is our life really that continuous? Let's dig in. First question, what do we actually remember from our supposedly continuous life? Do we recall it as one uninterrupted flow or as a series of events? For example, can you remember what you were doing the Wednesday before last? Chances are, after some effort, you'll recall maybe 2 key moments. Changed the oil in the car and ran into an old classmate I hadn't seen in a decade. You might add some routine activities, woke up, brushed my teeth, walked the dog, went to work, and that's about it. So while processes objectively flow continuously, our subjective perception of them is quite discrete. And trust me, the older you get, the more discrete it becomes.
Hold on. Memory is discrete, fine. But our present perception is continuous, isn't it?
Is it, though? Here's where things get interesting. The author of these lines is inclined to argue that all living beings subjectively perceive reality as a series of events, that is, discretely. Let's start with physiology. All living things perceive reality through receptors, sense organs. Every receptor has a threshold and differential sensitivity. For example, we don't smell something immediately, we only register it once. The concentration of odor molecules in the air reaches a certain threshold. At that moment, we register a discrete event. The pie in the kitchen is starting to smell good. Then differential sensitivity kicks in. We don't notice a change in the smell right away, but only when the concentration of those molecules increases by a significant enough amount. And here, again, we register a discrete event. Looks like the pie's starting to burn. So, what is objectively a continuous process we subjectively perceive as a chain of discrete events. In other words, any process can be described both objectively, continuously, and subjectively, discretely, dually. And this is the part where I'm tempted to bring up wave and particle theories of light, but we'll save that for appendices.
Well, fine. Maybe we perceive smells discretely, but sight and hearing, those are definitely continuous, right?
Oh, I'd love to debate that with you. Both sight and hearing also have threshold and differential sensitivities. So no matter how you slice it, signals from these receptors hit the brain discretely. What's different is that the brain has this amazing ability to stitch together a series of discrete events into what feels like a continuous flow of music or motion. In fact, humans have been using this brain trick in television and movies for ages. They just show us rapidly changing frames, and our brain happily interprets them as smooth, continuous movement, no effort required. We've mentioned the word event a few times now, so let's clarify. What exactly do we mean by that? Remember the Newton's first law. The simplified version we learned in school goes something like this. An object at rest or in uniform motion will remain that way unless acted upon by an external force. Ring a bell? That's from the realm of energy. In the realm of information, the equivalent rule would be a living being in the absence of significant events remains either at rest or engaged in routine activities. So, here's our working definition.
An event is a subjective informational stimulus capable of shifting a living being from one state to another.
For example, the smell of a burning pie jolts us out of our seat and sends us racing to the kitchen to rescue it from the oven. We can extend the parallel between the laws of the realm of energy and the realm of information, the non-living and the living. In the realm of energy, a force, an energetic stimulus, is somewhat analogous to the measure of surprise, which is the amount of information, in the realm of information. In the realm of energy, the greater the force, the greater the acceleration. Similarly, in the realm of information, the more surprising an event, the more decisively it can change our state. But the key word here is can. Living beings possess this little thing called free will, meaning they have the ability to react unpredictably to certain events. Any married man will readily confirm this. This particular conclusion, that life's reaction to events is unpredictable, may seem trivial, but we'll definitely make good use of it in appendices. For now, though,
Summary.
Life is discrete in both space and time. Life perceives objective reality through discrete informational stimuli, events. An event is a subjective informational stimulus capable of shifting a living being from one state to another